Have you ever heard the story of the women who fell in love with angels and paid the ultimate price? These weren't ordinary love stories. These were dangerous unions that defied heaven itself. When the fallen angels chose earthly wives over divine loyalty, chaos followed. Their children, giants known as the Nephilim, were wiped out by a catastrophic flood. Archangel Michael descended to restore order, but his justice didn't stop with the angels. What he did to the women will shock you. Stay with us to uncover how their souls became sirens, eternal voices of sorrow, and why their tragic love still echoes in legends today. Because sometimes one glance can change the fate of the world. Picture this: heaven in perfect harmony, angels singing praises, guiding the stars, keeping the universe in balance. Their only task: serve God. Simple, divine, untouchable. But then, something happened. As they gazed down upon the earth, they saw something that heaven had never prepared them for. Women, not just mortal women. These were beings of raw, earthly beauty, real, flawed, and irresistible. For the first time, the angels felt something forbidden stir within them, a desire that burned brighter than any star they'd ever set in motion. And with every glance toward earth, that forbidden longing grew stronger. Their celestial light began to dim. Thoughts never meant for angelic minds took root. Below, life carried on. Women laughed, worked, loved, unaware that divine eyes watched them from above. But deep down, they began to feel it too, a shift, as if the air had changed, as if something ancient and powerful was about to unfold. The angels wrestled with it. They were warriors of heaven, created for holiness, but now their hearts questioned everything. What if we could love? What if we could feel as they do? More and more joined in. The watchers became dreamers, and heaven began to lose its grip. These beings, who once helped shape galaxies, were willing to give it all up for a taste of mortal love. They didn't know it yet, but this decision would ignite a storm that would shake heaven and earth to their foundations, because some rules aren't just sacred, they're the pillars of reality. And then they fell. The moment their feet touched the earth, something changed. Not for the better. Imagine beauty so intense it silences a crowd. That's what these fallen angels looked like. They didn't walk, they floated. Their voices weren't spoken. They resonated like music from another realm. Villages stopped, time slowed, eyes widened. Women were mesmerized. This wasn't attraction, it was enchantment, like being wrapped in moonlight and pulled into a dream. Their skin shimmered like silver. Their eyes burned with the knowledge of eternity. And when they smiled, that's when the real danger began. Because what looked like perfection was actually ruin in disguise. Their smiles hid ancient secrets. Their gaze, though celestial, carried the weight of rebellion, and those who dared love them would pay a price no mortal was meant to bear. In a way no human could ever match, these women were drawn in, like moths to a flame. How do you say no to someone who literally glows with celestial light, who knows your every thought before you even speak, who offers you things no mortal man could ever dream of giving? It wasn't fair, and it wasn't supposed to be. But the truly chilling part came next. The more time the women spent with the fallen angels, the more they began to change. It was as if that otherworldly light rubbed off on them. They started seeing the world differently. Ordinary life no longer satisfied them. Regular men seemed dull and lifeless in comparison. The angels knew exactly what they were doing. From above, they had chosen the most beautiful women, the ones who caught their eye. Now, they used their divine power to become the embodiment of everything those women had ever longed for. It looked like a fairy tale, but the truth was more like a horror story wrapped in a love spell. Every union between a fallen angel and a human woman sent shockwaves through the heavens. These weren't just forbidden relationships, they were violations of cosmic law. And the children that came from these unions, well, that's where things got even darker. Let me introduce you to the Nephilim. Imagine a child being born, but instead of growing up slowly, they just kept growing and growing. These were no ordinary children. They were giants with the strength to move mountains and an appetite to match. When a Nephilim walked, the earth trembled beneath them. When they spoke, their voices echoed like thunder. They carried their angelic father's power and their human mother's emotions, but none of the wisdom to control either. Imagine a tantrum from a toddler the size of a building. Terrifying, right? Entire cities lived in fear of them. No one was safe. The Nephilim took what they wanted, destroyed what they didn't, and left chaos in their wake. Some were as tall as trees, others even taller. And they weren't just big. They were intelligent. That made them even more dangerous. Up in heaven, God watched. His perfect creation was unraveling. The world he had designed with care was now ruled by beings who were never meant to exist. Humanity, the creation he loved, was hiding in fear, praying for mercy. That's when the archangels knew they had to act. Michael, Gabriel, and their heavenly army prepared for the greatest battle they'd ever face. But fighting the Nephilim was like going to war against natural disasters. They weren't demons, they had angelic blood. And there were so many of them, even heaven's finest warriors weren't enough. That's when God revealed his plan, one that would wipe the slate clean, a flood. A deluge so massive it would wash away every trace of this forbidden chaos. As the rain clouds gathered, heaven's army marched. Lightning tore through the skies. Thunder cracked the earth. And for the first time, the Nephilim felt something foreign. Fear. The line between heaven and earth had been crossed, and the price would be unimaginable. No pauses, no mercy. Just endless water crashing down from a furious sky. The mighty Nephilim, those towering giants who had once made the earth tremble, were finally afraid. For the first time, their strength meant nothing. They tried scaling the highest mountains, but the flood climbed higher. Nature itself had turned against them. Their roars of defiance turned into screams of fear. All across the land, people cried out for mercy, begging heaven for a second chance. But it was too late. The fallen angels could only watch, helpless, as their children, the beings they had created, struggled and drowned. This wasn't a battle they could win. This was divine judgment, and no force in heaven or earth could stop it. Amid the chaos, one vessel floated untouched, Noah's Ark. Can you imagine being inside? Hearing the thunder rage, the waves smashing against the wood like fists of fury. Inside were the last humans and animals chosen to survive this worldwide reset, and outside, only death. They heard the desperate cries, the banging on the hull, but they couldn't open the door. They had to trust in the plan, trust in God. The waters rose higher and higher, first swallowing fields, then forests, then mountains. The Nephilim, once gods among men, were now nothing more than shadows lost beneath the waves. Their incredible power couldn't save them from drowning. The fallen angels were already in chains, cast into darkness for their crimes. From their prisons, they watched everything they had built vanish. Their lovers, their children, the cities they helped create, all of it gone, erased, washed clean. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain didn't stop. When it finally did, the world was no longer a world. Just water, endless, empty, and silent. The only sign of life was the ark drifting alone, a fragile speck on a vast, unforgiving ocean. Eventually, the waters began to recede, but what they revealed was unrecognizable. No monuments, no empires, no trace of the Nephilim's reign. It was as if someone had slammed a cosmic reset button. But for some, especially the women who had loved the fallen angels, the true punishment was just beginning. You'd think surviving the flood meant hope. But for them, it was a cruel twist of fate. Imagine loving someone so deeply, someone radiant, powerful, otherworldly, only to see them ripped away in chains, unable to speak your name, unable to hold you one last time. These women were left alone to face the aftermath. Some collapsed under the weight of what they had done. They had loved forbidden beings and brought the world to ruin. On their knees, they cried out for forgiveness. Their sobs echoed through empty valleys, their tears blending with the last raindrops. But not all repented. Take Nama, for example. Proud, stunning, unshaken. Even after everything, she refused to admit her part. She had reveled in her beauty and power, using them to seduce and lead others astray. And she wasn't sorry, not even now. That defiance became her curse. God's punishment wasn't just, it was poetic. These women were transformed into sirens. Yes, those sirens, the haunting, beautiful beings who lure sailors to their deaths with irresistible songs. They were cursed to be what they had become, alluring and dangerous, doomed to repeat the same cycle forever. They were condemned to an eternal role, to tempt, to destroy, to suffer. Beautiful, but cursed, and it didn't stop there. The fallen angels, still bound in their prisons, could feel everything. Every tear their wives shed, every breakdown, every moment of madness. It was like watching a horror story in which your loved ones suffer, and you can do absolutely nothing to stop it. That was their torment. Meanwhile, the angels who had remained loyal were given a new mission. They were to watch over this new world, one free of Nephilim, free of corrupted bloodlines, and free of forbidden love. But their vigilance came with distance, no more direct intervention. They had learned their lesson. Some lines should never be crossed, no matter how tempting the reason.